Hey guys, welcome back to
Another episode of Heavenly Chats. I'm Emma.
and I'm Chloe.
And
We're talking about prayer today.
Oh yeah. It's kind of a broad subject. We were had a whole bunch of different other ideas
Yeah.
in it, and then we were we'll just do the whole broad.
I feel like
thing.
I think just something broad this week will be good because we just experienced conference and then an entire worship night.
Oh my gosh.
And then we've had a lot of church in the last 7 days, and I feel like the Lord taught us a lot and stirred up a lot in us, and I couldn't even comprehend or piece together one.
No, words are
one
not wording. We've been doing too much.
Yeah, I'm fighting a sickness right now. We're going through it every week. I feel like
The boys are sick.
Woo!
The boys are sick. We're exhausted. Mm-hmm. And your family was here, and then you're going on
literally
a
leave
trip,
tomorrow.
and I've been working too much, and it's just, there's a lot going on. But anyways, we still find the time to come and sit and chat and do all the fun things. But we might not be as organized as we probably should be today, but that's okay.
I kind of like an unstructured episode every now and then because I think our best conversations are the ones that we don't have notes over. They're the branched off.
And we're just talking about random stuff.
Prayer. Literally prayer. This could go one of millions of different ways, but whatever the Holy Spirit has in store for us, we're rocking and rolling with.
I actually have a funny story.
All right. Do you want to share it?
I've been trying. Yeah, I would love to share. Okay, so. Okay, I love country music. Okay, guys, I literally love it. I really don't listen to it very much anymore, just because I always listen to worship music. It's I don't go very far in my car, so by the time I listen to 2 worship songs, I'm there because they're all 7 minutes long. So I'm okay, we'll listen to it, whatever. I put on Country Tay in my car, and literally one song, added it to my library. And I just felt guilty the whole time listening to it. I was like, I should just turn on my worship music, whatever.
I feel like that too.
And I get to the red light and I'm scrolling on my Instagram. My worship playlist starts playing. I wasn't even on my worship playlist. I was listening to one country song. It starts playing. And I literally start laughing. I go, okay, God, you're so funny.
That's crazy.
Because what was that? Literally, what was that? It was right at the good part. I start singing, it blanks off. I was like,
he was like, if you're not going to listen to me, I'm just going to do it anyway. I'm going to
if you're even going to sing, I'm just going to turn this on. I was like,
that's hilarious.
no, it's the weirdest thing ever. I literally started laughing. My girl was like, God, you're so funny. Guess what the heck is that?
That is wild.
Oh, we should always start with a little story. I feel like it gets
Honestly,
weird.
God was funny all week too. I feel like the whole conference week, you guys, it is so weird. No, this isn't really a specific story, but this is just me sharing an experience. But we walk into first day of conference and I had the worst cramps of my entire life. And I'm like, devil, you're not winning this one over. Nope, nope, nope. And I was in worship, I was fighting for my life. It was I don't get cramps like that. Mm-hmm. And my body was just ripping to shreds. It felt and I was struggling. And I had to have this conversation in my head of being Chloe, pray through it. Because I'm I believe in the power of prayer. Mm-hmm. And I'm if I'm focusing on the cramps, I'm giving focus to something else. I'm the Lord isn't providing these cramps right now. I know he's not. And so I had to pray through that. It was just a whole thing. Couldn't snap into it. And then the next day, I swear I was going through a mental back and forth in my head of so many different, I was at war in my mind. And I'm where is this coming from? Okay. Really, really weird. And then we get to day 3 of conference, and I swear, because night 2, I would say day 2, that morning, that afternoon, into the beginning of the conference,
we filmed.
My mind was yeah, you guys saw, I was out of it, and I was just in a funk, didn't feel good. And then we get to night 2, and they did this entire altar call, and so much prayer, and I was oh my gosh, and it kind of hit me. I was I need to repent of some stuff in my head, and I think that will help. And so I didn't go up to the altar, but I was really praying, harder than I've probably prayed in a very long time. And I swear, you guys, I woke up day 3. I felt like a new person. I was this is actually insane. And I felt I got so much clarity, I guess, on situations. Not clearance. I'm I'm not going through clearance. But I feel I had a lot of breakthrough. And it was so weird because they always say the Lord will break chains. Emma's just over the story. She's I was there. I don't care.
No, I'm trying to get comfortable. I feel if I sit too far back, then I'm just going to fall asleep. But if I'm too far up, I feel I'm too in
the
it.
camera.
Oh.
3, I wake up. I'm feeling refreshed. I feel I have control of my thoughts. I feel I'm in tune with the Lord and the Holy Spirit. I'm ready to go. We get to church. I'm like feeling it. I'm doing good. This is the best I physically and mentally felt in the 3 days leading up to this. And then we have like one of the coolest nights I've ever experienced in my entire life.
It was insane.
You guys, what were we singing? It was like the Yeshua
It was Yeshua.
for 2 and some hours.
2+ hours.
It was
insane.
actually the craziest experience of my life.
Well, the pastor comes out for the third night to speak. So we do the whole like 45-minute music, whatever, finally get through our little chit chat. We all go sit down. We're ready for the message. This lady comes out, has a whole message planned.
She didn't preach a single word of her plan, did she?
No, she literally just starts spitting random fire. We were like,
was
oh,
crazy.
Okay. And then it just turns into like a 3-hour worship thing. Like they made everybody push their chairs back. So the entire auditorium is just filled with all of us.
Yeah.
Singing the song over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. It was literally insane.
It was insane. Like actually insane.
Yeah.
For all that to say, you guys, it was like an encounter that I've never experienced in my entire life. And then
Then we
that
did
was-
that again on Sunday.
yes, then Sunday comes around and we have our like whole church worship night. So this is like all ages, everyone's invited, not just like specific to young adults. And it was supposed to be a worship night and it was more of like a prayer night. And it was another very, very cool experience.
Which I loved, but I was really excited for them to sing.
I know, I was
That's
too,
okay.
but it was so good for me because you guys, this is where I'm tying this whole theme of praying to. I'm like not one, you guys know, praying out loud for me is like, oh, I'm uncomfortable, like makes me feel really weird. And like I've never really had to like pray over someone out loud. Like I can pray in my head for people all day long. Speaking it out loud is like a whole different situation.
Besides like us four, I feel like, especially.
Yeah. And so we get there and we're like doing the worship that goes on. And then our pastor essentially was like, we need to like pray out loud. And he's like, every single one of you lay hands on somebody and like pray. And he's like, I need to hear you. And I'm like, oh, here we go.
Not kidding either. He's like the type of pastor that like, he's like the math teacher that like looks around the room and is like, okay, give us the answer. And you like have no idea the answer, like pooping your pants the whole time trying to find out the answer. If you're not praying out loud, like he's calling you out, for real.
And so I'm like, here we go. And I literally like for the first time in my life, like started praying out loud. And I was like, wait, 1, this isn't even as scary as I thought. 2, it's not as hard as I thought.
Yeah.
3, it's like the most fulfilling feeling ever. So weird. And then after that, one of our like other pastors, like the wife of the young adult pastor, she's pretty much the other young adult pastor, comes and prays over me. And she starts praying in tongues, trying to get me to pray in tongues. And I was like, oh my gosh. But it was cool because I didn't pray in tongues. I'm not there yet, but I will one day. But it wasn't happening that night but for me though, I had this moment where I was like, if I would have never gotten the courage to like pray out loud that night, there's no way I would even have the courage to like pray with her. Cause she was like praying over me and she's like, I need you to start praying, Chloe, like pray out loud. And I'm like freaking out. I'm like over like in front of this girl. And I'm like, this is so hard for me, like previous, but
I didn't know she asked you to do that.
Yes.
That's funny.
And so I was like, oh my gosh, literally me 2 days ago would have probably like passed out and fainted and like stressed. Like, I'm not kidding. Like that is how my body reacts. It like shuts down when I get nervous. But I was like, it was a completely different experience. And I was like, this is so cool because I could see the growth in myself from 1, never praying out loud to being now comfortable praying out loud to like having an opportunity to like tap into a gift from from the spirit of tongues. Like that's really cool. I didn't get that gift. It's okay though, because I feel like I still made progress in that area because prayer is so powerful. And I feel like the whole weekend, the Lord put me in situations where he forced me to like pray in those moments and like pray myself out of it. Cause a lot of it was in my head, but 2, it was also like cramps and physical pain and all of this stuff. And they're very minor things, you guys, like not end of the world, like life altering issues in my life, but they were still like affecting my ability to like be present at the conference and be present in my life.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is so new to me because before I would just kind of sit there and accept it. But I was like, no, I kind of have a weapon against the situation, and that's prayer. And it actually like genuinely helped because then whatever I was struggling with that night, I feel like I walked in with like a different struggle the first 2 nights. Like it was physically didn't feel good. Second day, mentally didn't feel good. But then I could pray throughout the whole conference about that into the next day. And then the next day I'd walk in and I wasn't any longer like suffering from that.
First initial.
Like he freed me from like the situation and he got me through it.
Yeah.
So it was just very eye-opening because I'm like, okay, prayer is so powerful. And 2, just being in an environment where you hear like hundreds of young adults praying out loud, praying over people,
Insane.
hearing people pray in tongues, like,
Yeah, if you've never heard that before, you probably think that we're like actually insane.
yeah.
And if you don't know what that is, it's just random words. It's like a different language.
It honestly, it sounds like some like South African language.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, I don't even know what to compare it to.
It's insane.
But it's like, I love it. Like, if that is my favorite ever thing to hear. Like, if we're in front of our pastors at worship and if they can, like, have you ever noticed Darrison will like pray in tongues during worship? Oh my gosh, I love it. Like, if I could just like sit and listen to it all day, I'm not even kidding. It makes me feel some type of way. Like, it's
really interesting.
It's so interesting. I'm like, that is like, I want to speak in tongues so bad. But
I
I'm
honestly
like,
think the more you overthink it,
yeah.
the weirder it is.
Yeah, I think I just need to get more used to like praying out loud. And then
like, let me go to step
like
one
I'm
first.
like I was still beginner phase and I was trying to like go to the advanced phase, but I'm like, whatever.
Can't go to third base without going to first.
Right.
So with all that to say,
Yeah.
we don't really know what we're talking about.
No,
today,
but we should.
we're just kind of.
We should pray. Speaking of praying, we should probably pray ourselves into this episode. Oh man, I just like breathed in and. Anyway, Lord, I want to thank you for bringing Emma and I here together to speak about all things you and glorify you. Lord, I pray that we can utilize this platform and this podcast to help others and to glorify you, Jesus. And I pray that you help us get through this episode. And I pray for healing and health because I really need it right now. And I pray over anyone listening who needs prayer. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
But sorry, I'm like, guys, I'm like borderline walking the line of being like ill and being healthy, and I feel like it's like swaying, and I'm like, oh, I feel good 1 second, and then the next second I'm like, not so
Yeah,
good.
the boys are sick and
Yeah,
they are
but
sharing their lovely sickness with us.
I feel like let's just start with a verse. Let's start with a Bible verse, and this will be good. The first one I think that's good in regards to like the topic of prayer is my favorite verse, Philippians 4:6, and it says, do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation by prayer and petition with thanksgiving present your request to God, and the peace of God will transcend all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Jesus. So
Fire.
I love this because anxiety is something I've struggled with. I can just like, my mind will like go, I don't know if it's a genetic thing or just like a learned behavior. I think a lot of like that kind of stuff is you grow up, like my dad has really bad anxiety. I grew up experiencing his anxiety. Therefore, I think that's why Jake and I have it. I genuinely don't know if it's like genetic. I think
my
it's like a
parents
learned
had it.
behavior. And then we're like
Well-
sponges as kids. You learn behaviors. I don't know.
I also don't think anxiety, it's obviously a real thing.
Yeah.
But I don't think you can technically fully cure it. Like, I
Right.
literally think it's all in your head.
I do too. And I really strongly believe that because I've noticed the significant impact praying and like growing my faith has lessened my anxiety. Like, he can help you through these things. And I think a lot of anxiety for me, this is my own experience. I'm not speaking on anyone else's because I think everyone's own encounter with anxiety is different. But for me, it's like a lot of it was like self-caused. Like, I let myself think about something and stress about it and worry about it. And when I heard this prayer, or that, not this prayer, that verse, and then there was a sermon I was sitting in, and the pastor was like, anxiety and worry is you doubting God's plan.
Yeah.
I was like, whoa. Because you can cast everything on the Lord. Like, he'll take it, and he does have a plan for you, and he essentially knows like beginning to the end. And he's not going to put you through anything that's not purposeful. And I always remind myself in a situation where I'm anxious and I'm like, what's going to happen? I'm like, he's always going to pick you up and carry you through it. And this verse is literally saying, don't be anxious about anything. And that's hard. Like, that is so hard. And that's something it's like a skill you have to learn to like revert to prayer and revert to trusting the Lord. But in every situation, by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, present your request to God. So it's like when you're anxious, praise God for something, any sort. Like, be in a state of like gratitude.
Thanksgiving.
Yes. And then present that worry to the Lord and be like, help me get through this. Like, give me clarity, give me some sort of discernment on the situation, and he will. Or like, open a new opportunity. Like, say you got laid off or you got fired from your job and you're anxious about paying the bills. It's like, Lord, please open an opportunity, open a door, give me some revelation of like how to solve this problem. And then it takes a lot of like the worry out of you because it's like no longer in your control.
Yeah,
But it's
That's what he wants you to do. He wants
Yeah.
you to give it to him, which you're not physically handing anything over, which is like my hardest thing where it's like, okay, well, I already said that and I already
Yeah.
told him that he can take it, but now I'm still thinking about it. You can't like physically stop your mind from thinking something. So it's like a really hard thing we're talking about here.
Yeah.
Because I think sometimes you can get anxious about being anxious, and that's my biggest thing is like I know how it feels to like have a panic attack.
Yeah.
And I never want to feel that way ever again. So in my mind, I start to freak myself out about having that thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's like I think my biggest problem now is I don't really think I have anxiety anymore. I have like the fear of getting anxiety.
Yeah. No, that's
which
real.
is like a real thing. And at that point you're like, okay, well, if I'm going to get it, I'm going to get it. And I'll be fine. You like, I've been through it before, and that's kind of like where I have to take my mind to it. But I always pray like, Lord, watch over my mind and like help me with my thoughts, because I don't want to have fearful thoughts, because if I'm worrying, then that's worshiping the problem and not what you have for me, I guess. Like he doesn't want you to have those thoughts. So pray watch over my thoughts, watch over my mind. Like if he can do anything, he can. And so that's like my biggest piece of advice, but everyone struggles with anxiety and like completely different things. But if it's like a self-inflicted thing that you get really anxious about, then pray on that part specifically, not just anxiety. So like the anxiety is like the umbrella
Yeah.
of whatever is
Like get to the
causing it.
root of the anxiety.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and like you said, it's like it's hard to like stop your mind from going there. But what I do, because I totally agree. Like sometimes it's just like you encounter a situation and boom, like your mind goes straight to like the worst case scenario. It's like a survival tactic of our minds of like how do I prevent something really bad from happening?
Yeah.
But it's like the second you notice your mind going there, you almost have to stop and then go to the Lord and be like, okay, I'm feeling anxious, like Lord. And I think even just that switch of focusing on the problem, focusing on the anxiety, and then turning the focus to the Lord and turning it into like a moment of prayer is powerful, because one, it makes you much more aware of what usually triggers anxiety, because it's like, oh, this is literally the same situation as last time. And I think that can be a good like lesson to teach you like the root cause, because sometimes you're like, I don't know where the anxiety comes from, it just like happens. And it's definitely a process to get through the root of it and figure out how to, you know, what even to pray over. Because again, some people don't even understand that part of it, because I've been there too, and I'm like, I don't know why I'm so anxious. Like I don't know what's causing this. But when I started kind of putting like a pivot in those thoughts and being like, okay, I know I'm anxious, I know this could go really bad, but I'm going to pray instead, and I'm going to give it to God, and I'm going to just talk to him for 30 seconds in my head. It almost like de-escalates the situation, and I feel like it does decrease the initial shock.
Focus on something else.
That's
all anxiety is literally you focusing on something so much that you're overanalyzing it to the point that you're freaking yourself up about something that's not even happening necessarily. So that's A, one, to distract you, and B, it's going to help you because he's going to help you through it. So it's a win-win situation.
It is. There's a lot of benefits to it.
Yeah, it really is a win-win situation. But what we were saying before this was like, is prayer your first response or your last resort? So like, I feel like when I talk to a lot of people in my life that aren't fully surrendered to God or saved with God, whatever, they were like, oh, like they know about it, whatever. They're like, yeah, well, like I'll pray about it, whatever. But it's so much different than that kind of thing. Like, you just can talk to him, whatever. But also, I was thinking about this on my drive home from work today. I was like, I'll talk to a whole bunch of old people at work because they come in and golf, and we'll talk about church sometimes. And like, they always say like, oh, that's good that you're like young and have your faith. And when they say that, it's supposed to be a compliment. But I'm kind of like taken back by it because A, I don't think they're used to hearing that from somebody like my age. And B, it almost sounds like I only know God, but I don't have like a relationship with God. So, oh, that's good. You have your faith. Like, I don't technically have anything. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, it's like an active relationship. It's not like, oh, one day I chose like, oh, I have God today. No, like it's an everyday thing. And same with praying, but the only way you can have a relationship with something that you aren't physically seeing in front of you is by praying.
Right.
That's like the connector of the two.
Communication and conversation like keeps things alive.
Yeah.
Like if you were friends with someone or you're dating somebody and you never talk to them, that relationship diminishes. Think of all the friends that you've had in your life, and maybe you moved away for college or they moved away for school, or you guys just grew apart. You probably grew apart because the communication died. Like my best friend Taylor moved to Florida. We still stayed in contact every single day. I felt closer to her than I did most of my friends that lived in the town I was living in. Right?
Yeah.
And so it's like communication keeps conversation alive, but when that's not a physical, like Jesus Christ isn't walking physically right now. And so it's like the only way to talk to him is through prayer.
Yeah.
But you have to be praying to him. Like you have to be nurturing that relationship through prayer just as much as you're nurturing your relationship by texting or calling your boyfriend. You know, it's that important. It's more important. It's actually way more important. But I think like you said, people do it as a last resort and be like, oh, something really bad's happening, I'm going to pray. But it's to be like, you don't just call your boyfriend and in a state of emergency. You call him and update him on your day every single day. You don't just call him because you have a flat tire.
Exactly.
Like you obviously call him when you have a flat tire, but you're also talking to him
all day,
every other moment of your day.
Yeah.
So it's like, don't just go to the Lord when you need something. It's like, be actively talking to him all of the time.
Yeah. Well, also, I don't know who I was talking to this about. Probably my brother. He was like, well, yeah, like I pray before bed. So good. I used to always pray before bed before I even like.
I feel like that's the beginner kind of
where
thing.
I was at now, but I'm like, it was always like half effort, half asleep type thing.
Yeah.
Totally fine. You still prayed so good. Awesome. So proud of you.
Yeah,
whatever.
that's progress.
But like, do it as soon as you wake up before you grab your phone.
Yeah.
Do it before you eat your meal, breakfast. Do it before you eat lunch. Do it on your way to work.
Yeah.
Do it then before you eat dinner and then before you go to bed. It literally doesn't need to be anything crazy. It's just like the more that you, like exactly what we're saying right now, the more that you talk to someone, the closer it's gonna
Bring
feel.
you to them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it seems weird at first, but it's not until you get like your first realization that it's working.
Yeah.
So like once you have that like realization, like, oh, like this
Yeah.
isn't like crazy. This isn't just for nothing.
Yeah.
Like I remember one of the first times I like prayed about like my motivation and like my whatever to like get stuff done and get out of bed and like want to be out of bed, whatever. This was probably like a year ago. And I remember praying it. I like forgot that I prayed about it. And I got through my whole day the next day. I got like 20,000 things done. And I like had a mental block for doing it for like 2 weeks. And I was like,
Yeah.
that was weird.
Yeah.
And then all the dots connect. Like after you pray, you're not like looking around all day like,
Yeah.
okay, God, when are you going to do it? Like I'm ready for it. It just kind of like happens.
Yeah.
And you're like,
Yeah. You
oh.
like realize the progress you've made and you're like, whoa, that's no longer a problem. And then you think back, like you said, and you connect
like
the
the
dots.
realization
and it's like,
is crazy.
Yeah.
And then you just, it's like a,
it gets addicting almost.
Yeah.
Because it's like, you ask and you shall receive. And so it's like, okay, like,
Yeah.
what else am I struggling with? Like, let's talk about it, God. Like,
yeah. And
he
it might
wants
not
to
always
help.
be the way that you want it to be.
Right. That's
But
really important to
like
understand.
maybe I didn't have the motivation for one thing and I got it in another thing, but still that's what he wanted
Yeah.
to answer it for. So
Yeah.
that's what I got. And so
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
progress within itself.
It's so
But
funny because I also remember my first experience of like noticing an answered prayer. Obviously, my whole life I've prayed at night and I've prayed for certain things, but to truly be like, I don't know, almost like on your hands and knees, like so desperate for God's help in a situation. I think that's like where new beginner Christians, I think their first time praying is like with a big problem that they've
Yeah.
been facing forever. And like mine was literally my relationship with food. I'm like, I would go through highs and lows with it. I think I've talked about this on the podcast before, but like
Yeah.
the first time, like everyone's like, one of my most commonly asked questions on my platforms, on my like day-to-day content is like, how'd you like heal your relationship with food? Like, how do you not like have food thoughts all the time? Like, how do you, just eat intuitively, all of this stuff. And you guys, for years, I've like thought I had a grasp on it, but it was like, it would be good for a month and then something would happen and then it'd be like a struggle again. And I just felt like it constantly had a grip on me. Or if I was doing good, I was waiting for something to like set it off and then it'd go bad again.
Yeah.
And it was just literally since I can remember, like from age probably like 14 to like the last 6 months, which is crazy. Like the last 6 months. That's very, very recent. I've been doing social media content in the wellness fitness industry for years.
That's insane.
And the one thing that changed is the fact that I started praying before every single meal. And in that prayer, I would be like, Lord, help me like heal my relationship with food. Help me, you know, view this as like something nourishing, and just honestly just remove all negative emotions tied to eating, whatever it was. It was something simple. It was kind of like a one little blurb in my 2-minute prayer. It was maybe a 10-second thing. But you guys, I maybe prayed over that for like a week. And then all of a sudden I had so much breakthrough. And since then I can like confidently say I have not had, it is like God, like quite literally vanished, removed it, boom. And
It's insane.
he like introduced me to, and it wasn't like he was just like, oh, boom, you keep doing everything you're doing and no longer those thoughts are in your head. He didn't just like remove the thoughts, but he started to like implement new ideas and kind of new revelations about nutrition and food that I had just like never experienced or thought about.
Yeah.
And I couldn't have gotten there my own. But I noticed, I was like, I heard in a podcast and it was like talking about how food, it's like a privilege to eat high quality whole foods. And I was like, that stuck with me. And that stuck with me a lot more than most things did. And like the Lord definitely like planted that in my mind like heavily because he knew it would help. And then it inspired me to start eating whole foods and just actually taking care of my body rather than macro friendly and all of this, but fueling my body with good quality foods. And since I've been doing that, I feel so much better. And it's not like I'm forcing myself to eat better foods. I genuinely want to. And he, I don't know, he just like changed my heart posture with it. But I'm like, the fact that something I've struggled with for almost 10 years, poof, in a week, the Lord was like, here's all these new understandings and these new ideas. And now I haven't a single day since struggled with it.
It's literally crazy.
Like people literally like experience eating disorders for years of their life, go to like therapy, clinical, whatever it is. And I'm like, the fact that I prayed before my meal for 10 seconds and that gave me breakthrough and healing. Like what?
He is the great physician. That's why they say
Yeah.
that. Like,
You guys, it's crazy.
he's greater than any doctor, anything. Like I said, I put it on my 2025 thing is I want to be able to pray either sickness or like a broken bone or something out of somebody's body, because that's literally crazy.
Yeah.
Like that's literally like one of my 2025 goals is because I want to experience that, because that's insane.
Yeah. Yeah. It is. It's so crazy. But the power of prayer is just like insane. And two, it's like even the power of your prayer for someone else is really impactful as well. Like I've had girls DM me and they're like, Chloe, I've been praying over you for years. And it's so cool to like see the prayers I had for you answered. So it's like, I didn't know that random followers of mine were praying over me and praying for me. But now it's like we said, generational, like prayers can be passed down from generations. Like our prayers from our grandparents or great grandparents
Are still active and living in our lives today. It always makes me think of that Morgan Wallen song where it's like, all your prayers finally came through. Like the Thought You Should Know song for his mom. Thought You Should Know that whatever prayers that you've been praying for me since I was a little kid. Have like helped him from all of his stupid decisions that he made now that he's like famous. And it just like always reminds me of that. But it's weird to think that it works like that. I don't know. Something that you can't see always is like weird to me. Like you physically can't see God. You can't see Jesus. You can't see anything like that. It just happens. And then it's like, whoa. And that's literally faith. And we've talked about this before. Like faith is literally something that you can't see, but you have it anyways type thing. Let me read my verse and then we'll get into that.
I just like, one time our pastor did a sermon on praying and stuff, and he was like, you're not praying enough. If you think you're praying enough, you're still not. And I think that's something to remind yourself of, is like, you always have room to grow in this area. You can always pray more. You can pray over more people. You can pray deeper. You can pray harder. You can pray longer. Like, you're not praying enough. Like, always be like, just talk to the Lord as much as you physically can, essentially.
Okay, mine's 1 Thessalonians 5:16. Rejoice always, pray continually, give thanks in all circumstances, for this is God's will for you in Christ Jesus. Pretty simple, pretty easy, but it's just, again, like, that's what he wants. Like, he wants to hear from you. We've said it again and again and again and again. Like, he can do so much. Because he loves you But if you don't give him anything, he still loves us that much as he's going to give us stuff anyways.
Yeah.
But like, it's not,
Well, I like to think of it
it's
like
not,
in a relationship, like with your boyfriend or your best friend, and it's like you want to do everything you can to help them, but until they like ask for help sometimes.
it's a help me help you situation.
Yes. And it's like you want, like, think how badly you want to help your boyfriend or girlfriend or best friend, you know, when they're struggling. The Lord wants to help us even more, like
10
a
times
million
that.
times more. But sometimes it's hard to help people until they want help. And so that's why it's important to go to the Lord, because he's trying to help you. But it's like when someone's trying to kick a bad habit, like my brother was an alcoholic, my older brother. And he was like, nothing helped until one, I admitted I had a problem, and two, I actually seeked out help myself. Like I wasn't told to go do it and forced to do it. I myself wanted to like go into rehab and get help. It's kind of like that, in my opinion, with the Lord. It's like he knows he knows every single thought, everything about us. But until we become aware of the problem and actually seek him for help, that's when like real transformation happens. And it's kind of like me with food, in my relationship with food. The Lord knew I was struggling with it for so many years, but I never looked to him and was like, help me. I was looking to every other outlet, every other remedy, every other thing I saw on the internet to help myself. I was just trying to help myself. But the second I go to the Lord and I'm like, help me, it's like, I don't know. That's just like where.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's really good.
Actually-
I never even really thought about that.
Yeah.
Or saying it like that
Yeah.
necessarily. Well, fire. I don't even know what else to say. I feel like we've
I'll read my
ripped it all.
next verse, because this one's a pretty good one too. It's Jeremiah 29:12. Isn't your verse 29:11? So right before that, it says, "Then you will call on me and come and pray to me, and I will listen to you." So he's literally telling us like he will always be listening. Anytime we come, it's not like you're calling and it's like, oh, is the Lord gonna pick up? Like when I call my mom, I'm like, okay, I got a 50-50 shot. She's gonna pick up the phone right now.
Yeah.
But like the Lord's always there and he's always gonna listen. Like he is 1000% dependable and reliable.
Yeah.
And the fact that we have a resource like that is insane. I don't even want to call him a resource, but it kind of feels like he's a resource in situations where it's like, I don't know what to do about this. I don't know where to go. But he's always there. He's always going to pick up. He's always listening. He's always ready to help. Like he's ready to go. Like he's on set, you know, like ready, set, go. He's on set at all times. Most of the time he's going without us even realizing it. But like,
Yeah. He's on go.
yeah, he's on go. Like he's rocking and rolling all the time.
That's
But
so funny.
I just like what Emma said at the beginning was like, is prayer your first response or your last resort? I really think you guys need to like ask yourself that question, because
We ask ourselves that too. Like,
yeah, that isn't just like, I still have to actively every day work on that, but it's helped my relationships and my approach with situations so much more than, because I'm a very like emotional person. I just always have been. I'm really sensitive. I can get really like excited. I can get really sad. I can get really mad. I feel like my emotions are very like easily like moved. But one thing that's helped me control that, because I think it's important to be like in a steady state, like kind of like a cool, chill, calm person. It's like I no longer go straight to a reaction of instantly, like Emma says something and it hurts my feelings. Instead of going sad, I like pray and I'm like, Lord, please reveal like why that upset me. Lord, please like, I don't know. I pray over Emma that she like learns the discernment to not speak to me like that and understand like why that might have hurt my feelings. Like it's just a different approach rather than me being like, oh, I'm so sad. And then that turns into anger and resentment towards Emma and it affects the relationship. It's like you start praying over the situation. You pray for more clarity on the situation. Because a lot of times when we're upset, we don't know why our emotions are happening. We don't know where they're stemming, like they're coming from. And I think that's when problems arise, because we assume, we make assumptions, and then it just snowballs into this whole mess. But the second you pray, and I just pray for clarity and I pray for understanding, and again, like you can pray over Emma and I's whole episode initially was going to be praying for your enemies. Not that Emma's my enemy, but like in the situation, say you were my enemy and you hurt me. That can be the hardest thing to do, is pray over someone who hurt you or you dislike strongly. Like,
yeah.
but it's so.
Yeah. I would never like say I have enemies or
Right.
anything like that. And I couldn't even like think of somebody by name, but I
know,
literally
me neither.
say
That's
it
why I
every
use you
single
as an
day.
example.
But I probably do it like once a week, like anybody that doesn't like me, or we've had a issue, or someone that I don't even know.
It can be even when someone cuts you off in traffic and it's like you want to get so mad, but it's like, Lord, I pray over their day. I pray that they, maybe learn better driving behavior. But like,
Literally.
even those little moments though can feel kind of hard. But then after I feel like much more peaceful and like still, and your emotions are like subsided. It's like they can get so crazy, but then it's just like a constant steady state after prayer.
Emotions are crazy.
Yeah, I
They
feel like
really
he's
are
just
crazy.
like
I'm like, I wish I could just be happy all the time.
I know.
I feel like we are most of the time, but
Yeah.
still, it's like,
Yeah. We're still human. We're flesh. Like, we're not perfect. And we're
Yeah.
going to have those moments. But that's why it's so important to understand, like, how powerful prayer can be. Because it can help us in those moments where if we feel helpless. Mm-hmm. When it's like, dude, like, I've been struggling with this for so long. Or, like, why am I so angry all the time? Or why does this keep making me sad? Like, have you ever prayed about it? And it's so funny because people are like, like when I have a problem, it's like, have you prayed about it?
Yeah.
And sometimes it's like frustrating, but it's so true because ultimately, like, that will be the key to unlock the problem and solve the problem. Mm-hmm. And most of the time when I'm having these reoccurring problems, it's something I haven't prayed over.
yeah. Trust me, we know it sounds stupid.
Yeah.
We've been on the other end of this.
Yeah.
We're like, okay.
And even sometimes, like, too,
Be
when I'm,
for
like,
real.
stressed out, Kyler's like, have you prayed about it? And I'm like, oh, like, you want to get mad, but it's like, they're right. You're like, oh, I've been causing all this, like, turmoil in my life because I actually, like, forgot to pray about it. And, like, we're human. We're going to forget sometimes.
Yeah.
Like, it's not, at least for me, it's like, I'm still working on making it my initial reaction. But, like, sometimes I don't do that. But it's always in those times where I don't. Somebody will be like, you pray about it? And I'm like, no, but I will. And then you pray about it. And then clarity comes and you're like, I wish I would have done that 3 weeks ago. But it's just funny.
It happens to the best of us, but that's why we're here to talk about it.
Yeah.
Because if we hadn't gone through it, then we couldn't tell you about
Yeah,
it.
exactly. But I guess if you're sitting there listening and being like, I want to pray, but I just forget. Like, how do I build the habit? I think
Set an alarm on your phone or something.
Yeah. I think that's actually a really good idea. I wasn't even thinking about that. But for me, one of the things is I force myself to pray before every single meal. And, like, you eat 3 times a day. So that's building that habit at least 3 times a day. And then, again, like Emma said, before you wake up, like, have those, like, moments, kind of, like, block them out throughout your day. Like, I like the meal thing because it's kind of every few hours. And 2, like, even sometimes I forget, like, there'll be rare moments where I forget and I start eating. I literally just stop chewing because it always hits me after, like, a bite or 2 and I'm like,
Me
oh no.
too.
So I'll stop chewing and I literally pray, or I'll be filming a video of me, like, eating or a full day of eating. And I'm like, oh, gotta pause the video so I can pray quick. And, like, it feels inconvenient, but it's so powerful. And it's like, you really need to make sure you're doing that. But for me, that helped my prayer life so much because when I met, like, you and Kyler and a lot of people in the church, they all prayed before every single meal. And I hadn't done that before. That wasn't, like, a thing I did in my life. But since then, it's, like, lit my prayer life on fire just because it's built that.
Build a habit, yeah.
Built that habit.
Yeah. No, it's something so small, but, like, it works.
Yeah,
and
it does.
Then it just becomes a habit, and then you, like, sit at a meal with somebody else that doesn't do that, and you're like, oh, well.
Yeah.
They just are eating.
But it's a cool way to, like, low-key plant a seed, too.
Yes.
Because you can either just pray and you don't have to involve them in it, but it's a cool opportunity to be like, can I pray over this meal for us? Like, I distinctly remember the first few girls that, like, I was friends with when I moved here. And they did that, and Kyler did that, and that was, like, one thing that stood out to Jake when he met Kyler. And it's so funny now, because I'm like, that's such, like, a basic Christian thing, but we just didn't have many, like, Christian friends. And so it was, like, his first encounter of someone being like, can I pray over this meal?
just picture.
And then, like, 2 weeks later, I was at, like, a dinner with another friend, and she prayed over our meal. And I remember being a bite into my meal. Like, I'm like, I feel so silly. Like, how did I not know? Because it's, like, such a, I just know to do that now. Like, I don't even, like, I rarely forget to pray before I eat. But I had a Brussels sprout in my mouth, and I swallowed it whole. Because I was like, oh, my God, I don't want her to see me, like, chewing, because I was so embarrassed, like, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm, like, gonna choke. Yeah, it was like a half Brussels sprout, it wasn't like a whole circle, but, like, that's still a big piece.
That's criminal.
Yeah.
That's
but
criminal.
it's a cool opportunity to plant the seed, to pray over someone's meal. Everyone needs prayer, but
Just picture you sitting.
yeah, I was like, oh, yeah, and she's
Choking
praying,
on
and
a
I'm like,
Brussels sprout.
feel it just, like, slowly going down my throat, and I'm like, ow. That was God being like, you should have waited.
Oh,
but
Jill, that's so funny.
yeah, but I think your prayer life is definitely a progressive thing. At least it has been for me. Like, I never used to pray. I prayed before bed. Like, we always grew up doing prayers with my dad. We did, like, the Our Father and the Hail Mary every night. So I've done that most of my life. That's not really a conversation with the Lord. And I think once I started having conversations with the Lord, I noticed like big revelations, but, and like breakthrough. But then from there, I started praying over my meals. And then from there, I started praying in moments of like desperation. And then I randomly just get bored and I talk to God because I live alone. And I'm like, hey, God, like,
what's going on?
Hey, like, how you doing? Like, just checking in.
Yeah.
And then it's like from there, I've gotten so comfortable with prayer life in my head that it's made me more comfortable to pray out loud. And like this podcast has been a good thing because like sometimes you just have to force yourself into it. It like feels scary, seems scary, but then once you do it, it's not. And practice helps. Like the more you do it, the better it is. Even if like me, when I'm eating alone, sometimes I force myself to pray out loud just to like get better at it and hear my own voice. And then that, like I said, has led me into being able to pray over other people. I've only done it once. I'm not a pro at it. Like this is a new level. This is like a new advancement in my life of like 3 days ago. But that helps me now. Like once I did it once, I like know I can do it. Much more likely to do it again. And therefore, hopefully the next step for me is like speaking in tongues or something cool. But, or like going and praying over someone in public. Like, do you ever feel like those moments where God's like, maybe I'm like, I don't know. Sometimes I feel like I overthink it and I'm like, am I just like looking for a reason to like, so I literally was like on a walk the other night and I went to the bathroom and like across the street and like the area. And like the worker was in there and she was like the bathroom cleaner and she just looked like she was having a really bad day. And I felt, I kind of feel bad admitting this out loud, but I kind of felt a nudge. I'm like, I feel like I need to pray over her. But then I'm like, I'm in that moment of like, one, is she actually like need a prayer right now? Or am I just like looking for an opportunity? I don't know. But I prayed in my head for her, but I didn't like offer prayer out loud. And I'm like, I low key feel a little guilty for not. But do you ever like have those moments?
I get that all the time, but I feel the same way.
I'm like, am I just like everyone I see, I feel like I should walk up to and pray over. But I'm like, okay, that seems like
a little much. Cause
I'm like, I don't know, like me in the bathroom being like, like I have
Someone's
no
really
idea why she's upset, but like, I don't know. So that's like where I'm at with my prayer life. Hopefully one day, I guess I'll.
Oh, it's so good.
Pray over the people, and I don't know.
That's so funny.
I don't know, but I almost prayed over a lady in the bathroom, but I didn't. Maybe I should have, but I'm admitting like I'm not perfect. I'm working on it.
I get that too. I don't really know what the like.
I'm like,
I don't know.
Right? It's like, when do you know? Like, Lord, speak to me a little more clearly. Like, I need to know when it's like a go time and when maybe I'm just like looking too hard into a situation. Because I'm like, anytime I see someone sad or upset, I'm like, they need prayer. I'm like, should I pray over them?
Agree. Literally agree.
It's so funny. Anyway,
we can pray about praying that.
Yeah.
Praying about.
I have had to pray about praying though. Like, genuinely, Emma knows I used to be so anxious about it. I still am, like, kind of. But it's getting better.
Yeah. No, you are way better. She used to get called out at dinner to do it, and she would like.
Guys, it would kill my appetite.
We'd sit there for 10 minutes, and she'd be like, "I'm not doing it."
Guys, I would like get sick. My hands would get sweaty. I would go like almost pale, and I would lose my entire appetite. Like,
she literally
I would
wouldn't
be
eat.
so hungry, and the second I was put on the spot to do it in front of my boyfriend, my brother, and Emma. I would be that nervous, but it's like, it's cool to see, like, if I can go from that to where I am now in just a few short months, and you can too.
Yeah, and then Jake was just,
he didn't help the situation.
he was always like, just do it, Chloe, you're fine, just do it, do it. And like,
he'd always throw me under the bus.
Not be like rude about it, but like would push her to do it, because that's just like the type of person he is. And I would always feel bad because I was like, so awkward, like I'm not gonna say anything. And now she's better at it. But he still does that sometimes.
Oh my gosh! Like, so he's like, "Chloe, gonna rip it," and so now I stop complaining and I just do it. And I think every time he's like, "Oh,
yeah,"
like, he's expecting the like.
He wants this like the reaction of her reaction. That's just the way he is. You can't tell him not to do something, so he'll do it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just the way Jacob is.
Yeah, but anyway,
we love him though.
We
love him though. Okay. Do we have anything else we need to say? Talk about?
Just pray some more, guys. Just pray some more. I'm like sitting in this couch. But I promise, your prayer life will change your actual real life. Like so much. Like if there's anything that you feel bound by and you have been struggling with your entire life or for years or for days or whatever it is, and it's just something constantly on your mind, I strongly encourage you to pray over it. And if your prayers aren't giving you breakthrough, seek out prayer. Like if you go to a service and they offer prayer, go get prayer for that. Like, just
but also
don't
stop if it's not working. Just keep doing it. Literally keep doing it.
It takes time. Like it might not happen overnight. It might not happen over weeks, but like there will be progress. The Lord will answer your prayer. It, like Emma said, it might not be in the way you think.
Yeah.
But it will happen and it will still like bring healing to
Yeah.
that need.
Yeah.
But
Agree.
anyway, we love you guys so much. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you in the next episode, and we'll see you in heaven. I feel like I just got rambling.
No, I killed it.
Ah, dude, my leg.